This is the second edition of the Business Opportunity Seminar 2023. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to this second edition. My name is Joel Molela. I'm representing the manager of Resource Mobilization and Partnership Department at the African Development Bank. And we at the department are responsible for the management of the partnership with different donors, including states, as well as non-sovereign donors, such as foundations. On the other side, we also handle the non-concessional financing window of the bank called the African Development Fund. We will speak to you about what it is that we do at the bank and some of the areas that we cover, what we finance, what is of importance to us, what the procurement rules are, among other things. And of particular importance is how you, as contractors or potential contractors, can learn about the rules of the institution and successfully bid for projects. To give you an idea of the agenda, we will start by introducing the African Development Bank Group with a presentation on the bank's strategy. In a second part, we will tell you more about how to work with the bank, with 3 experts presenting the different types of procurement, project procurement, corporate procurement, and consulting services. Our colleagues from ethics will also talk about the integrity and anti-corruption rules. The third and the last part consists in a roundtable with bank groups, sector experts. Each of them will give you an overview of their activities, including opportunities to work with the bank through procurement. We will then open it to questions from the audience. I would like to thank you all for being there and for your interest in working with the bank. One of the objectives of this seminar is to increase the quality and the pool of contractors working with the bank. The role of contractors is critical as the bank works closely with them to implement projects and ultimately deliver outcomes and impacts in our regional member countries. I will now give the floor to Henriette Aniket from the Partnership and Resource Mobilization Department as well. And she will be your host for today and will take us through the different presentations.
Thank you very much, Joel. So I'm Henriette Aniket. I'm part of the same team as Joel at the Resource Mobilization and Partnerships Department at the bank. And we are hosting this Business Opportunity Seminar. So thank you, everyone. So now we can start with the presentation. And the first one is to give you more information about the bank overall. It will be a presentation from the Strategy and Operational Policies Department at the bank, and it will be presented by Nontuso Ndlovu. So please, Nontuso, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Henriette. I'm Nontuso Ndlovu. I'm a young professional at the bank where I'm with the Strategy and Operational Policies Department. I'm just here just to give you an overview of what we do at the bank and our strategic direction at the bank. So the bank was founded in 1964. It is made up of 3 entities, which is the African Development Bank, the African Development Fund, and the Nigeria Trust Fund. We have about 54 regional member countries, which are made up of all the African countries. But also we do have other non-African countries who also form part of our member countries. The mission. So our mission at the bank is to promote sustainable economic growth and reduce poverty. We do this by mobilizing and allocating resources for investment in where they are needed the most in our regional member countries. We also provide policy advice, technical assistance, and support to our regional member countries. I must emphasize that we are not a commercial bank, but we are a development bank. At the bank, we have our 10-year strategy, which is from 2013 to 2022. However, it was extended to 2023 because we are still finalizing the new strategy, which is yet to be approved by the board. Our current strategy has two objectives, which are inclusive growth and transition to green growth. This strategy is supported by our high fives, which are our priority areas, which include the Light Up, Empower Africa, Feed Africa, Industrialize Africa, Integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life for the people of Africa. These high five priorities in our 10-year strategy, they all support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We contribute to most of the SDGs. So this is our organigram. If anyone is interested in knowing the organizational leadership team at the bank, you can find this at the bank's website. As much as our headquarters is in Côte d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, to ensure that the work that we do and to ensure that we deliver our mandate to our regional member countries, we try to move closer to our clients to enhance delivery. We do this by through our 5 regional offices, which are in West Africa, South Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, and I think I've mentioned Southern Africa. So about the high fives, we have complexes at the bank which are committed to deliver these high five priorities. My colleagues are going to tell you more about the work that they do in each and every of the high five. We also have country offices where we also have country economics to make sure that we are closer to our regional member countries. In the new strategy, we have emphasized greater selectivity, where we are committed to deliver fewer but more transformational projects. We want to focus on the quality of growth, where we're ensuring that growth is not just rapid, but it is also sustainable. It is also inclusive, more resilient, and green. We also have a strategic approach to the private sector development because we believe that the private sector has a huge important role to play in the development of Africa. Thus, we are engaging more and strategically with the private sector, especially in transition states. We also want to ensure debt sustainability, where we put a strong focus to work with our regional member countries to secure access to affordable finance and be able to manage debt sustainably. We also believe in climate action, where we are committed to incorporate climate-informed decision into 100% of our investments. That means that all our investments are climate-informed. And we also ensure that 40% of our resources go into climate finance to unlock regional member countries' access to international climate finance. We also tackle the drivers of fragility. We provide knowledge and expertise. We also mobilize other development finance, particularly from the private sector.
Yes.
As I've mentioned that we believe in the private sector, we also have the private sector development strategy, which has 3 pillars. The first one is to improve business environment, facilitate access to infrastructure, and promote enterprise development. Thus, we have a planned lending for the period of 2021 to 2025 of 29 billion euros in sovereign and non-sovereign operations. Thank you. If anyone has a question, they can connect us via email. Can you please go to the slide? Yes, this is our email, just in case anyone has a question. Thank you.
So now that you all got an overview of the bank strategy and work, we'll dive into procurement, and we'll have 3 presentations from 3 different experts, talking first about project procurement, then corporate procurement, and then consulting services. So first, we'll start with an introduction to project procurement with our colleague Ashraf Ayad.
Thank you once again to you all. My name is Ashraf Ayad. I'm the lead procurement policy officer for the bank, and I'm based in Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire. I'll be taking you quickly through we'll talk about projects procurement. So I want to give you an idea about the portfolio, the size of operations, in other words, the size of opportunity as potential bidders to the bank that you are looking at. And then just a brief idea on or brief information about the bank's procurement framework. This is the framework by which we do procurement. It's important for you at least to know the structure of the framework and what is important for you, which documents to look at and which not to. And then some information on where to find, in fact, information about opportunities, about what the bank is doing, what are the coming opportunities under procurement, and finally, some helpful tips mainly directed to those who have not worked with the bank before and are not familiar with how to do procurement with the bank. There are different types of procurement under the bank. So my presentation is on the projects procurement. And in projects procurement, this is the setup that you can see here, where the procurement is actually done when the bank offers or provides its financing to a particular project. So the procurement is done by the borrower or the beneficiary of this financing. The following two presentations will be on corporate procurement. In other words, the procurement that is financed from the bank administrative or capital budget and is done for the bank itself. In other words, if you work with corporate procurement or you have a contract through corporate procurement, you'll be signing the contract with the bank. But if you have a contract under a bank's project, you'll be signing a contract with the beneficiary or the borrower of the bank financing. Typically, for those of you who are not familiar with this setup, there are three main parties when we talk about projects procurement. There is the bank on one side as the financier, there is the borrower or beneficiary, and between the two entities, there are the financing agreement is signed. And then the borrower is going to be the party responsible for the procurement. So they're the ones who do the advertisement, the issue the bidding documents, do evaluation, award the contract, manage the contract. So they will be the ones who, between them and potential contractors or suppliers or consultants, there will be all these, tendering contractual documents that are being exchanged. But that does not mean that the bank does not have a direct relationship with the contractors or suppliers or consultants. We do, because payments in most international bidding processes, payment is done directly by the bank to the winner of this the winner of the contract. Also, our policies and our documents are all developed in close consultation with the representatives of the different industries. So we are in constant dialogue, for example, with FIDIC, who are the association that is representing the engineering industry, with SICA, with the international contracting associations, with regional contracting associations. So in that sense, we are also in dialogue with have a relationship with potential contractors, suppliers, and consultants. We can also receive complaints directly in case you are involved in a bank finance procurement, you're not happy about what's going on or the wrongdoings that you can see is happening. You can send the complaint directly to the bank, and there are a specific and dedicated mail address for complaints that is present or that is included in all our bidding documents. Also, the bank has the right to audit. Mentioning the borrower doing the procurement does not mean that the bank does not play any role, but in fact, the bank is doing an oversight of the procurement process. In other words, every step of the procurement process ideally has to be cleared by the bank. So though we are not doing procurement ourselves, but we are very much involved into clearing and supervising and overseeing the procurement process. This bank's right to audit clause is, in fact, even though the bank is not party to the contract, there is a clause in all the standard contracts used by the bank that enables the bank to come and investigate and inspect project accounts, project documents, and contract documents. And this is, in fact, the clause that opens the door for the bank to do its inspections and its investigations. Important also information about banks projects procurement is the eligibility criteria, because this is different from a little bit different from other MDBs. Other multilateral development banks, I think most of them, they do have universal procurement is applicable. In other words, any bidder from any part of the world can participate in their procurement processes. Now, the bank, as maybe mentioned in the previous presentation, is a group of 3 entities. So we have the African Development Fund, the Nigeria Trust Fund, African Development Bank, the Nigeria Trust Fund, and the African Development Fund. And the eligibility criteria for those is slightly different. For the African Development Bank and the Nigeria Trust Fund, only bidders and goods supplied from bank member countries is eligible. In other words, if a bidder is participating, he has to be from a member country. His subcontractor or subconsultant, even or sub-supplier has to be from a bank member countries. And these are the 81 member countries that was mentioned in the previous presentation. While on the ADF side, the African Development Fund side, it's open. Universal procurement is applicable there. So it's very important for you, if you want to work with the bank, is to know exactly the project or the contract that you are looking at is financed from which source of financing. This will be mentioned clearly in the bidding documents. But if it is from the ADB or the Nigeria Trust Fund, then if you want to choose a sub-supplier or a subcontractor, or you're supplying goods from a particular source, then it has to be an eligible source, in other words, from a bank's member country. The size of opportunity that we are offering, really, or let's say the size of our operations, you can see here on the screen that on average, the bank in terms of US dollars in value, in every year, the bank on average will offer contracts, will approve contracts between $2.5 to $3 billion every year. This is only the internationally bidded contracts. It's not from our public sector window. So we do have a private sector window. It's not reflected here. So under our private sector window, there are more contracts than this. And also there are the contracts that has been advertised nationally, also not including in this chart. So these two together, maybe you can add to this figure an estimate of another $1 billion. And as you can see, it, of course, is distributed between goods, works, and services. In terms of numbers, those always average every year between 2,500 to 3,000 contracts. The number of contracts for services is slightly higher, usually depending, of course, on the year and where the bank is involved. Can go a little bit over 1,000, but then you have the number of goods and the number of contracts for works is more or less the same. But in total, we're talking about 3,000, almost 3,000 contracts a year. And again, this is only the contracts that has been advertised internationally under our public sector window. How we do procurement? We do procurement in accordance with what we call a procurement framework. This is how to reach it on the website. The procurement framework is in fact of 4 documents. It's the policy, the bank's policy to procurement, and this is a small document of about 30 pages. It says what we can do, what is our procurement principles, what we cannot do, what we want to achieve, what is the vision, and so on. And anyone who wants to work with the bank needs to read and to be familiar with this policy. And then we also have a document that we call the methodology. This one is mainly directed towards bank staff, so it's not really of importance to you. But we also have a procurement manual, and being it a manual, it's a large, several volumes document. You don't need to know it at all. But if you are involved in a particular process, whether it's a consulting services or an international open competitive bidding process and so on, then it's always good to go and read just a section on that process that you are involved in. Then at least you know the rules that the borrower is trying to follow. So in case there is a wrongdoing, then basically you'll be able to know that maybe this happening is not acceptable or should have been done like that, and you can able to send to the bank and bring it to our attention, and we will look into it. Finally, we have a procurement toolkit, which is basically a live repository of guidance notes, standard bidding documents, and so on. It is available on the bank's website, and we keep on adding and updating this toolkit all the time. Where to find important information, there are several sources if you want to work for the bank. This is one of them, which we call the Map Africa. It's available. You can, every dot you can see here, and in fact, this is just part of it. We represent the project. Just by putting the cursor on this dot, you'll get more information about that particular project. Also, the project's data portal is very important information you can find there. But the document that I really would like to recommend is what we call the quarterly operation summary. This is a quarterly publication by the bank. It includes all the projects that were approved by the bank in the 6 months before the publication date, and in the 6 months, the ones that are in the pipeline after the publication date. And for this, you'll be able to find the contact to the executing agency, what procurement is going or anticipated under this project. If a procurement plan is available, we are going to put a link to the procurement plan. So it's a very important document in terms of business intelligence, in terms of you want to know if you are interested in a specific country, in a specific sector, then you will be able at least to get some leads from this document on where to ask about a particular project or an upcoming procurement opportunity. Also, these are the different publications, also very good and important links, like the general procurement notice, which is basically an advert that we do once a financing is approved, and it happens only once for each project, but again, it includes important information. Many bidders who work with the bank all the time, they wait for this GPN, and then they will know what the bank has approved, in which country. If it's a country of interest and a sector of interest to them, they will contact the executing agency. They get the details from that GPN, and then they will start following up with them about when a particular opportunity is going to be available. And when this opportunity comes, then a specific procurement notice, which is the second bullet point, is going to be advertised, which is, of course, the advert for a particular procurement process. And all these notifications and all these adverts are published on the bank's website. It's published on the AfDB journal, where you have also the link from here. And if you want to know about our procurement statistics, I'll put the link here for you as well. Some helpful tips. These are really will come to very general information for those who are experienced and have been working with the bank before or other similar institutions. But for those who haven't, I mean, this may be some very helpful tips. For example, what not to do. We see a lot of bids that are being rejected on causes of the bid security either not being provided, or that it's in case it's in an amount, then it's not in the sufficient amount, it's not the validity is not correct, or the format also is not there. So it's important to be mindful of that. Please, when we allow the borrowers to publish a particular opportunity, it means that the bank and the borrower has been discussing the requirements and what needs exactly to be done. And this is what will be reflected in the bidding documents. So, but in some cases, we find that bidders will come back with their own conditions to do the procurement. Like, this is my price subject to, for example, that I'm going to source a material from here, or that I'm going to do this, or that's an alternative technical solution where it has not, alternatives has not been allowed. And of course, these are all conditional bids, and unfortunately, they get rejected. So please stick strictly to the requirements that are reflected in the bidding documents. If you want to do anything other than that, you have the time to contact the executing agency during the bid preparation period and ask for clarification. Incomplete bids, we, believe it or not, we see it a lot, that bids that are not addressing all the requirements in the bidding documents, they get rejected. Documents that, like documentary evidences like test reports, or documents that, are evidence of the bidders' qualifications. Many occasions they are missing or not complete. Bids are not signed. It happens a lot. It's not a lot, but it happens that we receive bids that are not signed, which is basically just a piece of paper. We cannot do much with it. Or conflicts of interest that are not disclosed. It's always good to do a final check of the bid, and and to make sure that all the required documentations. I'll leave this for you in the interest of time, are included in the submission, in the bid submission itself, so that it avoids rejection. My final slide is basically why should you do work with the bank? Why should you seek to work with the bank? First of all, as you've seen in this presentation, the bank on annual basis will offer billions of dollars worth of business opportunities. When you participate in a bank procurement process, then equal opportunity, fair treatment, integrity is always guaranteed, because we are going to monitor and supervise along the way. If you've not worked in Africa before, working under a bank finance project or contract is an opportunity to put the foot into the door and enter into a developing market. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. High certainty of payment. As I mentioned, most of our international bidding processes is subject to direct payment by the bank to the supplier, even though as long as your obligations under the contract has been met, then the bank will make sure that you get paid accordingly. Our contracts are in different sizes, so they suit large multinationals, small, medium enterprises, smaller companies. So no matter, even if it's a one-man company, you will still find a chance and opportunity to bid on the bank projects, because it also goes across a wide variety of sectors. So good luck to all of you. I hope you found this useful, and I'm available to take questions. If not directly now, then I'll also be available in the chat and the Q&A up till the end of this first session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, for this great presentation. So now we will also give it some time if anyone has a question. I've seen a question, Rachid, en français, une question sur les projets d'énergie renouvelable. Nous allons avoir un collègue ensuite des secteurs justement qui vient de l'énergie, qui va faire une présentation. Donc je suggère qu'on garde votre question pour ce collègue qui pourra répondre à votre question. For the one who didn't have time to switch to translation, I was just saying that there was a question specific to energy. So we will wait for a colleague from the energy sector to be there to address that question. I see some question in the chat. Okay, so Ashraf, does the procurement policy have specific measures to promote, encourage women SMEs access bank project bids?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, our procurement policy takes into consideration the fact that procurement is now used for strategic purposes. It's not just about buying stuff under countries, no, but the countries usually they have development objectives into consideration, and our procurement policy realizes that, and we encourage a lot when we are designing projects with countries, if they have the aspirations or an objective to promote or to support, specific even disadvantaged groups or smaller, medium or small enterprises, women-owned enterprises. We do a lot of effort in that, and we can design packages specifically targeted to women-owned enterprises. In fact, the bank does a lot more on supporting gender issues, specifically with mainstreaming gender into public procurement. And there was also, like recently, even I would say an event that was grouping all African public procurement decision makers with the bank, together with our Department of Gender, that we were trying to also do some effort to that. So to answer the question in short, yes, and the bank is doing a lot in this field.
Okay, so I think with this, I don't see any other hand. So thank you again, Ashraf, and we'll move to the next presentation. So now we will welcome our colleague Chike Felio, and she will speak about corporate procurement. I'm giving you the floor, Felio.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. My name is Chike Felio, and I am a Senior Contract Management Officer in the African Development Bank. I'm in the corporate procurement function of the African Development Bank. And today I was just going to give you a quick overview and just key information on the corporate procurement function. And I'm going to go through a number of points, which would include the function, how we're organized, what and how we buy, where you can access our opportunities, the process of contract award, payment terms, modalities, and a few takeaways. I should also say at the start, in the interest of transparency, a lot of the bank's corporate procurement documents are available on the website. You can take some time out to have a look at those documents and familiarize yourself with those documents. My colleague earlier has talked about the different procurement functions, so I'm not going to go into those. What I am talking about today is a corporate procurement function. And within the corporate procurement function, we actually purchase and acquire goods, services, non-consulting services, works and real estate, which is required for the bank to carry out its mandate and operations. So whatever the operational needs are with regards to the goods, services, and works, the corporate procurement function is responsible for acquiring those services. How we organized? We're organized at the headquarters. That's where I'm based at the moment in Abidjan. But we also organize at regional and country offices within the regional member countries of the bank. We do have a liaison office as well. Within the headquarters, we actually do undertake procurement exercises above a certain threshold. But in addition, we're responsible for the policies and manuals and guidelines. But in addition, we do have procurement officers that sit in the regional and country offices across the African continent. And those offices are also responsible for procuring the goods and services to meet their operational needs. And so you would see some adverts with relation to goods and services requested for certain regional and country offices. As I mentioned earlier, we do purchase goods, non-consulting services, works, and real estate. Just by way of example, what does that include? Goods could include anything like equipment, hardware, office furniture. Services, a wide range of services, IT, communications, event management, catering. Works can also include things like construction, rehabilitation, and renovation of offices. Real estate can either include renting or purchase. To give you an idea of the portfolio and how big that is within the corporate procurement function, our total spend for 2022 is around 90 million USD. That's about, we've put the UA amount because that's the currency that the bank uses, but I guess the USD would be more familiar with that, which is at 90 million. And of that amount, the bank actually had approximately about 7,000 different transactions. So that's quite a lot of transactions, and the portfolio is quite big. This slide is to give you an idea of the different categories of goods, services, and works that we buy. So in case you're in the field for any of these goods and services in any of these categories, it gives you an idea of our spend within the different categories. As you can see, for the 2 years in 21-22, our biggest spend was around IT telecom equipment. That's a wide range of IT services that could be cyber risk, cyber security services, internet services, everything relating to our IT and how the bank operates in terms of the information technology services. But also you can see roughly around the top 5 can also include the financial services, leasing and rental, maintenance, and security and safety. So if you're included in any of these field and sector, it gives you an idea of the breakdown of category spend within the bank's corporate procurement function. So how do we buy? In terms, when we operate our corporate procurement function and our procurement exercises, we actually work within the framework of the policy, the rules and procedures as set out in the bank. We do have the corporate procurement policy. This is available on the website. So if you want to take the time to look at it, so you can have an idea of the framework in which we work with. We also have the general terms and conditions, which are also published on the bank's website. And this is the contractual terms and conditions that you will be bound by if you were to be awarded a contract with the bank. Also, we have the supplier's code of conduct. As you would expect, the bank as a reputable international organization, we do ensure that we award contracts with suppliers who maintain the highest ethical standards. In addition, as has been mentioned, the bank has 81 member countries. And so for corporate procurement function, the bank awards contracts to companies, to suppliers who are based in member countries of the bank. In terms of planning, we have what we call the annual procurement plan. This is also published on the bank's website and includes anticipated procurement activities for that particular year. It's normally published in January, February of each year. And for any contracts above USD 70,000, which normally the default method is open competition, that would be included in the plan and published on the bank's website. And that would set out the period in which we anticipate that that opportunity will be published. That will be Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4. So you can go on the bank's website and see whether this is within your field or your interest. Normally, they'll be set out in a coordinate by category and the value and when we expect to publish the opportunity. And so that gives you an idea of any forthcoming opportunities so you can prepare for those. I will not go through these individually, but just to tell you that we do have a number of procurement methods. And in terms of selecting the most appropriate procurement method, we do that within the scope of the policy and all the rules are set out in the bank's policy. Restricted competition usually will have a short list of suppliers in accordance with our rules, and open competition, that's usually published on the bank's website, and that's open to the world at large, provided you are in a member country of the bank. Within the framework, we also operate within the basic principles of the public procurement, which include the competition accountability, fairness, transparency, and also sustainable development, which is all within the mandate of the bank as a development organization. And within that, we do consider the social, the environment, and economic considerations. It is worth saying that with all our processes, we do have the eligibility criteria and the ineligibility criteria. You know, as has been stated, the goods and services have to come from a member country of the bank, and a natural person, an individual, must also be from a member country of the bank, and all businesses should be registered in a member country of the bank. In terms of what makes you ineligible to apply for corporate procurement contracts, you shouldn't have been debarred or cross-debarred, which usually relates to fraudulent and corruptive practices. You shouldn't have an existing conflict of interest. You should have the minimum level of financial standing that will be required for that particular tender process. And you should carry out, you should meet all your local rules and regulations in respect of carrying out your business in your member country. So how do you access these opportunities? For all open procurements, which are valued above USD 70,000, they're always in the first instance published on the bank's website. So you can see those opportunities published on the bank website. You'll be able to access all the tender documents and all the information relating to that tender. But we also have other venues or other venues that we use to advertise our procurement opportunities. And we do that so we can increase the diversity of our suppliers. If it's a local procurement, you can find that in local newspapers. They also advertise on UNGM. And depending on the nature of the contract, they can also be advertised in international specialized newspapers. In terms of the payments modalities, once we've received the goods and services which have been accepted by the bank normally has 30 days in which to make the payment. I should also state at this point that in accordance with the bank's treaty, the bank is tax exempt, and so the bank doesn't pay tax for any goods or services that it receives. In terms of the other options available for the bank, we also use a P card, purchasing card, in effect a credit card, and that could be used for low value purchases up to a certain threshold. In addition, there is the opportunity to make advance payments, provided that it's backed up by a bank guarantee. If this applies to you, you can, of course, make inquiries and speak to the relevant officer in charge. In terms of the takeaway from this, I would say that all vendors that do business with the bank need to be registered on the bank's database. If you need to be registered, you can get in contact with us. We can help you through the process of getting registered. You must ensure that you meet all the bank's eligibility criteria, being from a member country is one of those criteria. You must ensure that you comply with all your local, social, financial, commercial, and other laws that are applicable in your member countries, and also to the sector in which you're providing your services. In addition, you make sure that you comply with all the requirements in the tender document. I did listen to my colleague earlier talking about the do's and don'ts, and I have to echo that, what he said. If you do need any clarification on the tender process, there usually are contact details in the tender document. Please feel free to reach out to us. We can clarify any issues and any questions that you may have. And as an international organization, the bank awards contracts to suppliers who maintain the highest standards of ethical conduct at all time. I thank you very much for your time, and this is the end of my presentation. And Henriette, over to you, unless there are any other questions, I'm available. Thank you very much.
So thank you again, Chike, and we'll move to the next presentation. So now we are welcoming Yao Wotor, who will present about the recruitment of corporate consultant. Mr. Wotor will present in French. So please, everyone who doesn't speak French, you can now use interpretation services so that you can follow his presentation. So the presentation will be written in English, but he will speak in French. Thank you. Donc, Yao, vous pouvez y aller, s'il vous plaît.
OK, merci bien. Donc, la présentation sur les politiques et procédures applicables au recrutement des consultants institutionnels par la Banque africaine de développement va nous conduire à travers les différentes phases, les différents points développés dans le document de politique qui est la directive présidentielle 07-2022. OK, donc le document de politique actuellement applicable au recrutement des consultants est la directive présidentielle 07-2022, approuvée par le président de la Banque africaine de développement le 25 juin 2022. Donc, à travers cette présentation, nous allons brièvement passer en revue l'objet et le champ d'application de la directive présidentielle, les dispositions générales qui s'appliquent et qui s'imposent à tous, les procédures de recrutement, aussi bien pour les consultants individuels que pour les bureaux d'études, les modes de rémunération des consultants individuels et firmes, et le niveau d'approbation des différents contrats, des contrats signés par la banque et les prestataires de services intellectuels, et le rôle particulier de certaines unités, de certains départements qui sont impliqués dans le processus d'acquisition. Pour commencer, il faut dire que l'objectif de la politique de la Banque africaine de développement vise à obtenir des services de consultants de haute qualité à travers un processus compétitif, transparent et équitable, dans le respect des principes d'économie, d'efficacité et de rapport qualité-prix. La politique vise à encourager le développement et l'utilisation des consultants nationaux des pays membres régionaux de la banque, soit sous forme d'association ou de partenariat avec d'autres firmes provenant de pays membres non régionaux qui auraient plus d'expérience dans les différents domaines. Donc, lorsque nous parlons de consultants financés par le budget de consultants institutionnels, il s'agit des contrats de consultants qui sont financés par le budget administratif de la banque. Donc, il s'agit des processus internes gérés par le personnel de la banque. Et il s'agit des contrats qui sont également financés par le budget d'équipement ou bien les fonds provenant de partenariats, les fonds de partenaires financiers avec lesquels la banque a signé un accord de financement. Et généralement, ces accords de financement recommandent que ce soit les procédures internes de la banque qui s'appliquent. Quelles sont les conditions d'éligibilité des consultants pour pouvoir être recrutés comme consultant à la Banque africaine de développement? Tout d'abord, en ce qui concerne les consultants individuels, ils doivent naturellement être ressortissants d'un pays membre de la banque, que ce soit un pays membre régional ou un pays membre non régional. Et en plus de cela, ils doivent remplir les conditions de qualification telles que prescrites par les termes de référence de la mission à laquelle ils postulent. Pour les consultants réguliers, ils doivent en principe avoir au moins 5 années d'expérience pour être éligibles. En ce qui concerne les bureaux d'études ou bien les cabinets, ils doivent être immatriculés dans un pays membre de la banque dans lequel ils ont leur principal centre d'activité. En plus de cela, il faut que les firmes répondent ou bien remplissent également les conditions de qualification telles que décrites dans les thèmes de référence, dans les critères d'évaluation du contrat auquel ils sont en train de postuler. La Banque africaine de développement recrute également une catégorie particulière de consultants, de jeunes consultants, dits consultants juniors. Ce sont généralement des jeunes diplômés. Et il faudrait pour cela qu'ils aient au moins le niveau master, de master 2, et qu'ils soient âgés de moins de 32 ans et qu'ils disposent de 2 à 4 années d'expérience pertinente dans le domaine de la mission. Donc, le recrutement des consultants juniors se fait obligatoirement, par procédure compétitive. Donc, la méthode de sélection par voie compétitive est la méthode par défaut en ce qui concerne le recrutement des consultants. C'est la méthode prescrite essentiellement par la directive présidentielle 07-2022. Donc, pour cela, toute unité, tout département qui a besoin d'un consultant doit d'avoir exprimé le besoin dans son programme de travail et ensuite préparer les thèmes de référence détaillés décrivant les rôles et responsabilités, les critères de qualification, d'éligibilité, les conditions d'opération, de fonctionnement, la durée du contrat, les modalités de paiement. Donc, suite à cela, il y a obligation de préparer un avis de demande à manifestation d'intérêt qui est publié sur le site web de la Banque africaine de développement et également pour ce qui concerne les consultants internationaux sur le site, la plateforme des Nations Unies UNDB Online, United Nations Development Business Online. Donc, la méthode de recrutement par entente directe ou bien par négociation directe est une méthode exceptionnelle qui doit qui doit répondre forcément à certaines exigences prescrites par la directive présidentielle. Lorsque, par exemple, suite à un processus compétitif qui s'est avéré infructueux, le besoin de recruter le consultant s'impose toujours. Le département, bien l'unité recruteur peut, sous réserve du respect de certaines conditions, utiliser la méthode de négociation directe. Lorsque l'on veut continuer une prestation déjà commencée par un consultant qui n'a pas pu s'achever, donc dans le souci de continuation d'une mission exécutée par un consultant, initialement recruté par procédure par voie compétitive, on peut également recourir à une procédure exceptionnelle. Lorsqu'un consultant est le seul qualifié, le seul qui dispose des licences, des droits d'expertise, de licence dans le domaine, il va de soi qu'on ne peut recourir qu'à lui seul sans recourir à une procédure compétitive. La politique reconnaît également des contrats dits de faible valeur qui peuvent justifier le recours à une procédure exceptionnelle de négociation directe. Mais il faut dire que cela se fait dans un cadre très restrictif et sous réserve des approbations, de certaines approbations obligatoires avant de signer le contrat. Comment sont rémunérés les consultants? En ce qui concerne les consultants individuels, il faut dire que la Banque africaine de développement dispose d'un guide pour aider les différents départements à préparer d'abord le budget pour le recrutement de leurs consultants individuels, qui se base sur la complexité de la mission, ensuite sur les qualifications et le nombre d'années d'expérience dont doit disposer le prestataire à recruter, le consultant à recruter. Pour ce qui est des firmes, il faut dire qu'il n'y a pas de guide, c'est la loi du marché qui s'applique et la rémunération est essentiellement celle qui ressort des négociations du contrat sur la base de l'offre financière proposée par le bureau d'études, par la firme. Il existe au sein de la Banque africaine de développement une unité spéciale qui est chargée du suivi du recrutement des consultants institutionnels. Donc, le processus est suffisamment décentralisé, c'est-à-dire chaque unité, chaque département qui désire recruter un consultant va y procéder, va élaborer ses thèmes de référence, préparer ses avis, mettre en place les comités d'évaluation, évaluer soit les CV pour les individus, soit les propositions techniques et financières pour les firmes, et négocier et signer le contrat en obtenant les approbations requises. Donc, la responsabilité fiduciaire est au niveau de chaque unité qui recrute. Cependant, il existe une petite unité qui est chargée de faire le suivi du processus, de mettre à disposition les différents outils nécessaires pour faciliter la tâche aux différentes unités, de préparer des rapports périodiques au management et au conseil d'administration, de développer de mettre en place des programmes de formation et de former le personnel pour être sûr que les règles et procédures sont respectées dans leur ensemble. Et il faut également dire que la Banque africaine de développement a mis en place une matrice de délégation de pouvoir qui exige des approbations, des contrôles, des revues, des approbations à chaque phase du processus, à la phase de la préparation de la liste restreinte, à la phase de négociation du contrat, à la phase de signature du contrat, à la phase après tout, s'il y a des amendements. Toutes ces étapes sont soumises à des approbations bien données. Et nous sommes tenus dans l'exécution de nos tâches de veiller à ce que la matière de délégation des pouvoirs soit respectée par tous les utilisateurs, toutes les unités qui recrutent des consultants. Donc, en ce qui concerne les chiffres, il faut noter qu'en moyenne, la Banque africaine de développement dépense environ 100 millions de dollars américains par an pour le recrutement des consultants. Donc, c'est un secteur qui consomme beaucoup d'argent et il est important de veiller à ce que tout le processus de recrutement soit fait de façon transparente et efficiente. Oui. Donc, de 2019 à 2021, il faut dire que la répartition que nous présentons là se situe entre le budget administratif, le budget d'équipement et les trust funds. Donc, de manière générale, la grande partie des consultants recrutés est financée par le budget administratif, suivi par les trust funds, puis viennent ensuite ceux qui sont recrutés et financés, ceux dont les contrats sont financés par le budget d'équipement de la banque. Donc là, nous constatons qu'en 2019, de manière générale, il y a eu 2376 contrats signés. Ceci inclut à la fois les contrats initiaux et leurs amendements. En 2020, nous avons eu un total de 2450 et 2412 à peu près en 2021. Oui, c'est à peu près le même schéma qui est produit ici pour ce qui est des firmes, des bureaux d'études. Donc, il faut dire que de manière générale, le recrutement, les firmes recrutées, le nombre de firmes recrutées équivaut à peu près à un quart du total, du global. Donc, la majorité des consultants la plupart des consultants recrutés sont plutôt les consultants individuels. En 2022, oui, la banque a dépensé a signé plutôt 1603 contrats de manière globale, aussi bien, et ce chiffre concerne aussi bien les consultants individuels que les cabinets et les bureaux d'études. Et la moyenne en termes de financement du montant dépensé se situe autour de 82,3 millions d'unités de compte, soit à peu près également 100 millions de dollars américains. Oui, donc il faut dire qu'avant avant de signer un contrat avec la Banque africaine de développement, il est important que les consultants soient enregistrés sur la plateforme, dans la base de données des consultants, qui est Décon actuellement. Et donc, l'enregistrement est fait online. Le lien est disponible sur Internet et accessible à tous. C'est à peu près les différents éléments que j'ai voulu partager avec vous. S'il y a des questions particulières, nous sommes à votre disposition. Même celles qui ne pourront pas être posées dans le cadre de cette présentation, sont toujours les bienvenues après à travers l'adresse email que nous avons précisée dans la présentation. Je vous remercie.
Parfait, Monsieur Wotor, merci beaucoup. S'il y a des personnes qui souhaitent poser des questions en live, n'hésitez pas, hein, vous pouvez lever votre main et on vous donnera la parole. Monsieur Wotor, maybe a question a bit broad in English, but maybe you can give some answer. Someone is asking, which sectors is AfDB looking for consultants, advisors for projects? For example, in safety and security or in transportation infrastructure development?
Yes, currently the areas covered by the recruitment of consultants is very very large. We have a large number covered by and various sectors that are covered by the recruitment of consultants. Mainly, I can say that we have a consultant in assisting in financial sector, private sector, infrastructure, statistics, language services, document editing. More and more we are having more graphic designers, so it's still in the area of language and editing. Yeah, so those are the key sectors. We have advisory services for the senior management to develop strategic documents and policy documents in the various areas where the bank intervenes.
I think that's very clear. There was a related question from Yvonne. Are consultant needed on bank-funded projects in which sector? So I think you just answered that, and also to inform the participants that after we'll have a few presentations from the sectors, so you will get examples of the type of project that recruit consultant. So with this presentation, we basically finished the cycle of 3 presentations about procurement. Now we'll have a presentation about the ethics. And after this presentation about ethics, we will dive into the presentation from the sectors. So I'm inviting my colleague Oluwafemi to come presenting. Oluwafemi, the floor is yours. I believe you wanted to share your screen, so you can go ahead and start your presentation, please.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon. I'll share my presentation now. Colleagues have already spoken to some of the issues that I would raise in my presentation, particularly as it relates to the bank's integrity profile and how we work with partners and what we look for in terms of profiles of partners we work with. One of the bank's 5 main cardinal principles is integrity. And this is in recognition of the fact that corruption and related integrity issues plague development, implementation and development agenda, not only within Africa, but across the world. And they can impede things such as the processes, including the resource mobilization and the use of the resources for their intended purposes. And that's why a key fiduciary principle of the bank, as set out in the agreement establishing the bank, in particular in Article 17 of the agreement establishing the bank, is that the bank is required to put in place measures to ensure that whatever resources that are entrusted to it are used for their intended purposes. When the bank engages with counterparties in terms of either the non-sovereign operations where loans, guarantees, and the likes are provided, or when it engages consultants or engages contractors, or even in the sovereign operations where countries borrow money to implement projects, the companies and individuals working with them are expected to uphold a high standard of ethics, which is comparative to what the bank ensues. And you would find this in the bank's procurement documents. And this is just a screenshot from the general conditions applicable to the non-sovereign operations, which indicates that the bank reserves the right at every point in time to cancel in part or in whole any loan, guarantee, or any other instrument that it provides if the entity operating it or participating is involved in any sanctionable practice. And by this, we mean either corrupt practice, coercive practice, collusive practice, or fraudulent practice. And I'll go down into that a bit more. Now, to ensure that this operates well, the bank has the Office of Integrity and Anti-Corruption, which has two mandates, a prevention mandate and an investigation mandate. Through the prevention mandate, we provide advisories to bank departments and also conduct capacity building, sensitization sessions, due diligence reviews, and provide general overview of risks, integrity risks as they pertain to projects and also the implementation of bank activities. On the investigation aspect of it, the office investigates allegations of sanctionable practices leveled against counterparties who either work in non-sovereign operations or who in sovereign operations are involved as bidders, contractors, suppliers, and the likes. And it also investigates allegations against bank staff for onboarding in non-sovereign operations in order to ensure that the standard of ethics and particularly integrity of the counterparties are up to par. We look and review, do an integrity due diligence reviewing to try and find out 4 key things. 1, the beneficial ownership, who are involved and who are the actual owners of the entity, criminal and civil or regulatory history to find out if there are no challenges in terms of the background, and then sanctions if they've been debarred, cross-debarred, sanctioned by the United Nations Council Security, United Nations Security Council, and also whether they have relationships with politically exposed persons or other high-risk relationships. But for politically exposed persons, it does not mean that the bank does not do business with individuals who are classed as politically exposed persons. This is purely for the purposes of risk management. Again, at that onboarding, there are a couple of information that the bank requires in order to do this assessment. So you would find out if you approach the bank for a non-sovereign operation facility or some guarantee that you would be required to provide information on your company, on your shareholders, on your transactions as it relates to the facility or the instrument that you seek from the bank. This is to enable us know whether we, as the bank, is comfortable doing business with that entity and to find out if you're on the same level of integrity with the bank. Now, to go on to the sanctionable practices, I have since my time is short, I have a 2-minute video that better explains this, and hopefully it will get this done.
Good afternoon, boss.
Hello, Zeno. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. I just returned from the ministry, where I bought the bidding documents for the African Development Bank funded ring road construction.
Ah, that's great. If we win the bid, we are assured of work and cash flow for another 2 years. So, have you studied the bid criteria?
Yes, boss. We meet all the criteria in the bidding documents, except the number of years of construction experience and the annual turnover. But we can easily overcome that with a little photoshopping of our registration documents and financial statements.
That is dangerous. Did you not read in the papers that the bank recently debarred our main rival for telling one small lie in their bid?
How will the bank know what we have done? After all, we have friends in the project executing agency and they know we are the best and cheapest in the market.
No, Zeno. Don't jeopardize the future of this company that we have been building for the past 8 years. Come, let me show you what the bank says about these underhand practices on its website. Can you see here that the bank forbids all those who participate in procurements financed by the bank from engaging in what they call sanctionable practices? There are 5 types of improper behaviors, including corruption, fraud, collusion, coercion, and obstruction.
I usually see something like that in the bidding documents, but I have never fully read it. I always thought that they were just part of the formalities.
No! The bank defines corrupt practice to mean any form of bribery and fraudulent practice as misrepresentation. Essentially, any lie told or facts hidden to gain an advantage. And you want us to provide false statements on our experience and financial profile? Those are automatic fraudulent practices. We do that and we are finished as a business.
Report all suspected sanctionable practices to the bank's Office of Integrity and Anti-Corruption. All complaints are treated with confidentiality and whistleblower protection is available to complainants.
So as expressed in the video, you will find on the bank's website the sanctionable practices stated therein. There are 5, and the bank prohibits this in all transactions that counterparties, bidders, suppliers, consultants, and all the gamut of individuals and entities who help in delivering the mandate of the bank. And you would find out that where the bank debars an entity, the name of the entity or individual is published on the bank's website. And this is also an opportunity to state that this is done in conjunction also with other multilateral development banks. So when an entity is debarred, and the debarment goes beyond 1 year, the other multilateral development banks, those are the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, all cross-debar that individual or entity, meaning they will not do business with that individual or entity for that period of time. I will drop the link to the bank's public debarment list in the chat. The bank also has a zero-tolerance policy to sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment within bank finance projects and its activities. And the bank has a whistleblowing policy where it is able to receive complaints, it's able to receive tips from co-bidders, members of the public, and all other people who are interested, and it guarantees anonymity and protection for those who provide this. So thank you very much. I will stand by to receive any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Oluwafemi. So now we will start going into the presentation about the sectors. So the sectors will give you an overview of the activities, the projects they implement, and what are the business opportunities through procurement. So we'll have 5 sectors presenting, one about energy, one will present about urban development and infrastructure, one about climate change and green growth, one about agriculture and agro-industry, and also about human capital, youth, and skills development. So we'll start now with energy, and our colleague Nopenyo will present. So Nopenyo, welcome. Let me share my screen so that you can start.
So my name is Nopenyo Dabla, Senior Investment Officer within the Renewable Energy Division of the bank, within the power, energy, climate, and green growth complex. I think the bank structure was explained or presented a bit earlier, and so within that, so we're one of the kind of sector-oriented complexes, and we have the mandate to deliver on the New Deal on energy, with its objectives of 160 gigawatt of installed capacity, connecting 130 million people to the grid and 70 million off grid, and also 130 million people having access to clean cooking. So that's kind of involved on the kind of business side, quite a lot of projects to be kind of processed and financed. So we are also custodians, you've through the presentation we've also heard about the high 5 priorities, and so we are the PVP, as we call it, complex, is a custodian of the Light Up and Power Africa kind of high 5, and also we help on delivery on the bank's climate change action plan. There are 4 main departments within the complex, 3 really dealing clearly with energy, but on different sides of the energy topic. So we have the financial solutions, policy and regulation, which is one. We have the power system development, which also look at more the transmission and kind of distribution networks kind of aspect. And we have the renewable energy and energy efficiency division, which is the one I'm working on. There's also the climate change and green growth department. So since the New Deal on energy was adopted, also approved in 2016, we have finance a number of quite a large amount of projects. Kind of, so the graph here is showing 2021, which was about 8 million, but I think now we are about a bit over $9 billion that have been committed through the to the energy sector in the implementation of the New Deal on energy, and about 80% of those projects are public and 20% are private projects. And so through that portfolio, we try to aim to bring impact in terms of kind of access to electricity, about 20 million people, and having 3 gigawatts already to be installed, and also almost 8,000 kilometers of transmission line and 72,000 of distribution lines. I mean, those numbers obviously will increase with the more projects that are being processed and added to our portfolio, and which is something that is kind of always ongoing, as we were always constantly processing new projects. These projects are either private or public, and some of the private projects that we can look at come through different, obviously, financing arrangements and come in different technologies as well. Talk about, for example, the examples cited here are through hydro and solar projects in respectively in Gabon and Egypt, but also either through project financing, corporate financing, also equity participation. We're also able to support quite a number of private sector projects. And next one, please. And on the public side, through different, government, supporting the different government programs aiming at, access or increasing the share of renewables in the power systems in those countries. We also support, several, quite a number of projects, such as, some of that you might have heard of, so the Noor solar power plant in Morocco, but also energy storage projects in South Africa, and also access-related projects in Rwanda through grid extension and through an RBF type of mechanism that one of the tools that the bank uses. And also we have an example is the Ghana mini grid and net metering project, which aims to install 35 mini grids in kind of island communities in Ghana. So this is just quickly to give you an overview of some of the project and of the bank, what we do on the energy side and what we want to try to achieve. And that will be quickly that. And if you have any further questions, then I'll stand here to answer that. Actually, if I may just come to that, there was a question already in the chat, which was related to the energy sector, and the question was about what the bank does. Let me just get the question clearly again. About
it was dans les projets, so you speak French, so in the renewable energies, does the bank assure les paiements d'énergie produite? Okay, so so you can answer it?
Yes, so I think one of the instruments that we have that we kind of usually come handy in some of the countries where there is sort of some high risk perception is the partial risk guarantees, which really aim to cover aspects related to some of the macro aspects like currency and convertibility or non-transferability, also some more political oriented, like expropriation, confiscation, nationalization, but also some and force majeure being one of them as well, and also breach of contract, which in this case would actually relate to the non-payment, and this by the power utilities in this case. And in kind of designing the project, I think those products usually are sought after. And in each individual case, it also involved kind of requests or conversation with the government to avail this product. But we're available to discuss that more in detail for specific projects and how that can be availed.
Thank you, Nopenyo. Yeah, and
Thank
the
you.
question was also asking about specific countries. So just to say that the bank work in all the regional member countries, so any country in Africa. But then, of course, each like specific projects or trust funds will have sometimes target countries. But broadly speaking, like the bank, yes, potentially could implement project in any of those countries. Thank you, Nopenyo, and to all participants. So we will take actually question at the end. So we'll go through the 5 presentations about the sectors, and then we'll take all the questions. So please also, Nopenyo, stay with us, and you may answer other questions regarding your presentation at the end of the 5 sector presentation. So now let's move to the next presentation, which will be about urban development and infrastructure.
D'accord, merci. Donc, je me présente, Maïmouna Toundiaye Diop, je suis lead spécialiste au département infrastructure et développement urbain. Donc, le département infrastructure et développement urbain, c'est en réalité, en fait, le département qui gère pratiquement le tiers, je dirais un peu moins du tiers quand même, mais environ 30% du portefeuille de la banque. Et notre mandat est de contribuer au développement économique et social des pays membres par la mise en place donc de réseaux de transport et logistique sûrs, résilients et inclusifs et en même temps respectueux de l'environnement. Nous coordonnons également tout ce qui est engagement de la banque pour la promotion donc, du développement urbain durable en Afrique. Et nous soutenons également les pays membres de la banque pour assurer une gestion donc, de l'urbanisation de manière très efficace. Donc, c'est un département qui offre tout ce qui est assistance technique, expertise et également des financements pour tout ce qui est planification, préparation et mise en œuvre des projets. Donc, c'est un département qui est composé de 7 divisions. Donc, nous avons les divisions qui s'occupent de la politique et tout ce qui est stratégie, gestion des connaissances. Une division qui s'occupe donc de tout ce qui est activité politique et également les stratégies. On a également la division qui s'occupe du développement urbain. Une division également qui s'occupe de tout ce qui est partenariat. Et on a encore 3 autres divisions au niveau des régions. Donc, une division pour le nord et le centre, une division pour l'est et le sud, et la division ouest et Nigeria. Donc, pour tout ce qui est orientation stratégique, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, c'est un département qui soutient tout ce qui est système de transport et logistique à travers le continent. Donc là, ce slide, ça montre donc les investissements de la banque dans le secteur des transports de 2011 à 2023. Nous avons eu à financer 205 projets pour un montant total de plus de 15 millions, donc 15 milliards de dollars. Alors, si on voit la répartition donc, des investissements de la banque dans ce secteur, le sous-secteur routier occupe 65% de la part donc, des investissements, suivi de tout ce qui est transport fluvial, donc tout ce qui est port. Ensuite, voilà, on a les aéroports qui occupent quand même une place pas importante, mais la tendance maintenant au niveau de la banque, c'est vraiment de diversifier et d'aller vers des modes beaucoup plus alternatifs, raison pour laquelle, si vous voyez donc nos investissements pour 2023, vous voyez que ça change un peu. Donc, les routes, on est maintenant à 56% et ça va encore changer en 2024. Donc, comme c'est 5 minutes, je pense que ce slide, ça montre juste ce que nous avons fait jusque-là. Donc, au niveau de chaque sous-secteur, que ce soit les rails, les routes, principalement pour les routes. Donc, 50% de nos investissements dans le sous-secteur routier concernent les corridors, tout ce qui est corridor d'intégration régionale au niveau du réseau transafricain. Alors, je vais juste donc insister sur certaines opportunités. Donc, nos projets phares. Ce projet, c'est le projet Abidjan-Lagos, d'un coût de plus de 15 milliards de dollars, donc qui traverse plusieurs ports, le port d'Abidjan, le port de Tema, Lomé, Cotonou et Lagos. Et c'est un projet qui est en train d'être préparé pour une première phase pour notre pipeline de 2024. Donc, c'est vraiment des opportunités qui sont là. Les études sont pratiquement finalisées. Et il ne reste que l'étude sur comment dirais-je, pour le financement de certains tronçons rentables que nous envisageons vraiment mettre dans le marché avec le secteur public. On a également ce projet également qui devait normalement passer aujourd'hui au Conseil. C'est le SGR entre la Tanzanie, le Burundi et la RDC. On est ici dans une phase qui fait 651 kilomètres. La banque finance un montant de plus de... En fait, c'est environ pour la Tanzanie, 595 millions de dollars. Et ensuite, pour le Burundi, environ 100 millions de dollars. C'est un très grand projet, 651 kilomètres divisé en 3 lots. C'est vraiment des opportunités pour le secteur privé. C'est un projet qui sera approuvé cette année et certainement, donc, la passation des marchés, tout ça là va commencer en début d'année prochaine. Nous avons également donc le corridor, le Buto corridor entre Angola, Zambie et toujours RDC. Là aussi, c'est une ligne existante qui fait 1865 kilomètres. Et la partie qui nous intéresse pour le moment, c'est en Angola. C'est un projet qui est en préparation, qui est dans notre pipeline pour 2024. Et je pense que là aussi, c'est vraiment des opportunités pour le secteur privé et tous les promoteurs et les banques également. Voilà donc la fin. Et là, c'est les contacts. Donc, concernant le projet Abidjan-Lagos, c'est cette division donc, de l'Ouest qui s'en occupe. Vous avez donc son adresse email ici si vous voulez plus de détails. Pour ce qui est de l'Obito Corridor et puis également le SGR entre la Tanzanie et la RDC, c'est M. Iman Youssef. Donc là aussi, vous avez son adresse email. Abidjan-Lagos aussi, il y a donc du point de vue des études, donc si vous voulez des informations concernant tout ce qui est rentabilité, concernant tout ce qui est études et détails, donc c'est M. Marco Yamaguchi, c'est lui qui gère pour le moment tout ce qui est études concernant ce grand projet. Donc voilà les 3 projets phares donc de notre département, mais on a beaucoup d'autres projets. Cette année, il y a eu 13 projets qui ont été approuvés et l'année prochaine, nous prévoyons l'approbation de plus de 25 projets. Donc voilà en gros concernant la division infrastructure et développement urbain. Je vous remercie.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Maïmounatou. Je pense que c'était vraiment utile de voir ces exemples de projets. C'est du concret et ça donne vraiment une idée aux participants du genre des projets de la banque et comment ils peuvent participer. Donc, merci. Donc maintenant, nous allons passer à la prochaine présentation sectorielle qui va être à propos de ce qu'on appelle capital humain, les jeunes et le développement des compétences. I think we are going to switch to English. So the next presentation will be about the Human Capital, Youth and Skills Development Department. I mean, from the Skills Development Department. And it will be presented by Frederick Wamalawa. So Frederick, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I'll speak to our interventions in the human capital youth skills development. So as you know, human capital has to do with investing in people's skills, health, and well-being so that they can be productive. So under this department, we focus on 4 areas: health, jobs, skills development, nutrition, and social protection. Each of these areas are under a manager and is guided by some kind of strategy. So under health, we have the strategy for quality health infrastructure in Africa, which seeks to enhance access to quality healthcare for the people of Africa. And all our investments are guided by this sector. Under jobs, we have the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy, which actually seeks to create 25 million jobs for African youth and sort of equip 50 million young people with employable skills. Closely related to the strategy is the Skills for Employability and Productivity in Africa Action Plan, which seeks to sort of help address the ongoing lack of skills and skills mismatch among young people. So the idea is, while you invest in people, in their health, you invest in jobs, in skills, but you also have to be mindful about the nutrition. Research shows that what persons become actually depends on what they are fed right from the time they're in the womb of their mother. That is why we have the multi-sectoral nutrition action plan, actually to help the bank scale up its intervention around nutrition. And our aim is to reduce stunting, especially among under 5 children, by 40%, but also help in social protection, especially for people who are in vulnerable situations like unemployed youth. Just like maybe my colleagues who have presented, we as under this department, we have sovereign and non-sovereign operations. These are lending programs that we operationalize mainly to government, but also non-government, private sector. But we also have, we also do technical expertise in terms of policy dialogues, economic sector work, analytical work, and that actually brings into who are our clients and partners. They are not any different from what my previous colleagues have presented. Our main client, who is also a partner, is the government, actually, mainly the Ministry of Finance, but also ministers responsible for human capital issues. We also work very closely with development partners. For instance, in countries that are in fragility, countries that are in war, or countries that are in very difficult situations, some of our programs are delivered by UN agencies. Some of these partners, especially multilateral and bilateral, so here I'm talking about World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and others, also cooperate with us in terms of co-financing and or parallel financing of our operations. We do also work with the private sector. Some of the private sector have come to us actually to ask for resources. Some we're also working with them as implementing partners down the operational value chain of the projects. We also work very closely with the civil society as our partners, as it were, our partners for that matter. Well, as I'll speak shortly, most of our projects are infrastructure projects. We're heavily investing in strengthening infrastructure in education, in health, and we do civil works where we need contractors. Colleagues in procurement have spoken about how to engage contractors, and then some of our soft operations will be like, for instance, analytical work. We will always seek the expertise of professionals, as it were. Just to give you a brief overview of our portfolio, as we speak, as it is now, we have about 96 operations in education and skills development, in health, again, in jobs and in nutrition, 96 of them, going for about 2.6 billion US dollars that are distributed across the region. Most of them are in West Africa and Nigeria, about 31. And then we have Eastern region, we have 30, then Central Africa, North Africa, 26, and then Southern Africa, about 9. I'll just give an example of some of the operations. So just again to say that the bank's interest, especially when it comes to issues of skills, educational skills and jobs, is really to enhance this whole idea of entrepreneurship skills among young people. I mean, many young people out there have acquired skills, but I think what we want to do is to be able to produce young men and women who can think of creating jobs on their own, instead of looking for white-collar jobs. That's why most of our interventions are around enhancing entrepreneurship and innovation among young people. So I'll just give an example of some of the operations or some of the projects that we're doing. For instance, the board just recently approved a project in Nigeria. It's called the Ekiti Knowledge Zone Project, which mainly, again, aims to sort of promote innovation entrepreneurship, especially in the digital subsector among young people in Nigeria. So here we are putting up a state-of-the-art, if you wish, technology park, or a green city, as they're calling it, well equipped with data centers, incubation and training centers, co-working spaces where young people can come and dream and that sort of thing, and co-create and be able to sort of come up with excellent ideas that they can be able to sell on the market. It's a huge infrastructure project. Of course, it will also involve training them in digital skills, but also giving them resources to start up their enterprises. In Rwanda, we're putting up a modern training center to build skills in aviation. So this is again a huge infrastructure project where I think at the end of it all, the aim is really to be able to build skills in aviation, not just in Rwanda, but also in all over Africa. The same for Angola, a project that's quite similar to Nigeria. We are just about to. We're actually in the process of designing this project, which again will sort of aim to enhance the capability of TVET institutions to be able to prepare young people for the labor market. So that again is such a huge infrastructure project. So apart from the normal high level, big ticket operations, we also do special initiatives. So special initiatives are kind of interventions that we think there's a niche for the bank to invest and maybe generate some good practices, best practices that can be scaled up. We have this very exciting program called the Coding for Employment, whose again aim is to equip young people with demand-driven digital skills, including again entrepreneurship skills. So far, we have trained about to the range of 150 young men and women. We've set up about 7 centers of excellence in 4 countries: Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. Apart from that, we also have trust funds. So what trust funds do is some of our partners or donors, as you wish, will have some specific interests in some areas. So what I'll do is that they'll, apart from what the resources they put as a basket under what the bank calls ADF, whatever it is, they have specialized, they have put aside some resources which will work with them to sort of advance some kind of particular or specific intervention. Like the Japanese, we have an ongoing trust funds with them called the Japan Policy and Human Resource Development Grant, which is mainly, giving scholarships to of African youth to take up some postgraduate studies in Japan and some African countries. We also do policy dialogue. As said, we've been having regional science, Africa Science Technology Innovation Forum, just to discuss typical issues of science and technology and its implication to development in Africa. So that's generally just an example of some of our big ticket interventions, but also small scale interventions. That is our conduct. The first 5 are managers. My conduct is the last one, and we're happy to engage going on from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Frederick, for this presentation. Very different topic from urban development and infrastructure, but yet very important as well. And we could, and actually also a lot of opportunities for procurement through, like you said, education and health infrastructure. So I think it was very important to mention those projects as well to the participants. So now we'll move to the 4th presentation. Mark, are you able to present now?
Okay, that's fine.
So now we listen to Mark about agriculture and agro-industry. Thank you, Mark.
Colleagues, good afternoon and good morning, wherever you find yourself. So I will present on the agriculture and agro-industry. And the department is solely in charge of the agricultural sector of the bank. So our mandate is basically delivering on the 2nd priority areas of the high 5. Colleagues, you recall during the presentation of the strategy in the first session, the high 5s were presented. And for the agriculture and agro-industry department, we are mainly focusing on the Feed Africa strategy of the bank. And this is the strategy within which our investment within the agricultural sector is delivered. In terms of the priority areas of investment, in a layman's language, it's basically from farm to the fork. So basically, all the activities that are involved from the farm level up onto the table, we are there. Typically, our projects can focus on all the value chain for a particular commodity or specific areas of interventions. So for instance, if a specific problem of a commodity has to do with storage, processing, and packaging, then that is the area that would focus on to help the countries or our partners that we are supporting to address. On the other hand, it can be one or two of the segment of the chain. For instance, it can be both production and then processing. Then we would address these 2 parts of the chain. So for our clients, it's not different from what my colleague from Human Development presented, except that at the government level, we mainly deal with the Ministry of Finance, Ministries of Agriculture, and Ministries of Fisheries. These are our main public sector partners that we deal with. Occasionally, when environment and natural resources are separated, we also engage with them. But for the development partners, it's almost the same as what my colleague from Human Development presented. We also deal with the private sector. You might have seen the presentations from the procurement. Through our project in subsequent slides, I will present that we have a number of suppliers, contractors, and consultants that we work with, or they help our regional member countries to deliver their projects. And we deliver this project through a number of financial institutions, the traditional one being the banks, ADF, and then the ADB instrument, be it a loan or a grant. Beyond this, we also have trust funds that private sector entities can apply to the bank to source funds for technical studies that would allow them to prepare bankable operations. So these trust funds are available for the private sector to apply to the bank, and then upon receipt of your concept note, we'll review and advise if we will take it to the next step or not. But that is subject to the level of engagement that we would have with the entity that would reach out to us. And there are a couple of other trust funds which are also focusing on specific areas. I believe you will have access to these slides, so you'll be able to have a detailed look at all the trust funds available. So typically, as I presented in the second slide, we look at from farm to the fork or the table. We have all kinds of projects that we implement within the agricultural sector. Here, I'm just showing two of such projects. The first one you see on the upper part of the slide is a $56 million maize and soya bean project in northern Ghana. And here, over 20,000 hectares was put under cultivation. Within this project, we have suppliers who are supplying seeds of various technical specification to the project. Farmers were trained by several consultants. We have other farmers who also supplied the project with day-old chicks, because part of the project dealt with producing 25 million broilers. The second project is a Shile Valley Transformation Project. This is a big one. It's a 234.5 million project, which is co-financed with the World Bank, and basically is to construct huge irrigation dams. And here, various tenders were floated for contractors to be able to construct these dams. Even before the contractors will come in, we tendered for the designs of these dams. And so those were also opportunities for consultants or firms to bid and then design these dams. Of course, even during the construction, we have consulting firms to supervise the construction of these dams. All these are opportunities that contractors and then consulting firms could have. This project also had capacity building element, which deals with training that consultants could do. So in January 2023, the bank co-hosted a high-level summit where over 34 heads of state and government attended. And the bank, through our own resources, we committed to invest $7 billion over the next 5 years. However, we have other partners who jointly have committed to invest over 72 billion over the next 5 years. Now, for the bank, over the next 5 years, these are the outputs, some of the outputs that we seek to generate. And all this, we don't do it on our own. Neither our regional member countries. We engage contractors, service providers, and consultants to deliver this. So for instance, we anticipate to deliver over 312,000 metric tons of wheat seeds. These seeds would have to be sourced and then supplied to various projects that would be involved in wheat production, similar to maize. We have rice, and actually Feed Africa is targeting 18 priority commodities. For all those priority commodities, there will be need for their planting materials. In terms of extension and farmer training, there are various training targets that we have, which we will need trainers to train these farmers, or even the trainers of trainers within the model. So for instance, we anticipate to have 800 trainers of trainers who are basically extension officers. And of course, these trainers will be done through the engagement of the services of consulting firms or training institutions. Of course, financing is also a huge one. Financing, we have two ways of doing the financing, either through our development financing unit or through agricultural projects. We create credit, revolving credit to on-lend to farmers. And we don't do the on-lending directly. We engage financial institutions, be it microcredit or some commercial financial institutions with focus on the agricultural sector. And of course, agriculture cannot be delivered without infrastructure. So infrastructure also forms quite a huge part of our investment. And all these infrastructure are delivered by contractors and the consultants who will who will design and then supervise them. Over the next 5 years, we anticipate to construct 67,000 kilometers of rural roads. These are all opportunities that will be available, and I would entreat colleagues to visit the bank's website frequently to see some of the tenders that are available, and then you would submit your bidding documents for competition. So to contact the bank's agricultural department, we have the director and then 7 other divisions in charge of the regions, and then 2 at headquarters who are in charge of agribusiness and then research and productions. All others are for the other regions on the continent. Thank you very much. I would be available for further questions.
Thank you so much, Mark. Super interesting. So now we'll move to the next and last presentation about sectors, and then we'll give an opportunity to the participants to ask a question about all this presentation. So Ayan Le, I'm inviting you back, please.
So let me start. So I'm Ayan Le. I sit in the Environment and Climate Finance Division at the bank, and I'm also the AfDB GEF coordinator. So I look at the GEF portfolio at the bank as well as the adaptation fund. So I think we can jump right in and skip the outline so that there's time for exchange. Yeah. So when it comes to the sector overview, so very quickly, the mandate of the department relies on 3 key documents. The first one, I won't talk too much about it. It's the bank's 10-year strategy, transition to green and inclusive growth. The second key one is the new climate change and green growth policy and strategy, which extend from 2021 to 2030. And then the last one, which is much more pragmatic here, is the climate change action plan from 2021 to 2025, which lays out the 4 key pillars that drive and guide the work of the department, the PCG department, which is the Climate Change and Green Growth Department. The first pillar has to do with low carbon development and mitigation. The second one has to do with leveraging climate finance, so the mobilization of resources, both external and internal to the bank, to allow for climate action and green growth to happen in the regional member countries. The third one has to do with setting up the right context for those actions and projects to take place, so the enabling environment. So there is also financing that goes into that. And lastly, the fourth pillar, which does not appear here, has to do with resilience building, so climate resilience building in the regional member countries. Those 4 pillars are supported by areas of work that are quite tied to the pillars. So the first one is transition to green growth, which is, comes back very often. Second is the gender, youth, and social inclusion dimension. So here we talk about working closely with civil society organizations as well as local NGOs as much as possible, so involving them in this work. The third element has to do with the private sector development and participation, so trying to get the private sector to prioritize climate change adaptation and mitigation as much as possible, often through creating an interface between the public sector and the private sector. And finally, resilience, resilient recovery, which is quite self-explanatory here, not just to climate, but also other shocks as relevant for the bank. The next slide, please. So deals with the various clients and partners. So on the right hand side of the slide, we have a box here with a bunch of funds. There are external as well as internal funds in there. So this box actually shows at what stage of the project cycle these funds come in and can finance different sets of activities at each of those stages. The 3 stages of public sector preparation enabling environments, so the context. Second is project development phase. So this is where we finance the development of projects and project proposals. And lastly, the project finance phase. What is important to retain here, there are 3 external funds: the CIF, the Climate Investment Funds, the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, as well as the Green Climate Fund, which looks at mitigation and adaptation. There's actually a fourth external fund, which is not very active at the moment. We are going through the reaccreditation process, which is the adaptation fund. And then we have all the rest of the other funds are internal to the bank. I'm not going to go through them because of lack of time, but you can explore them in the box. The second thing to retain here is in terms of the type of financing that can be mobilized from these funds. So we can look at grants, we can look at technical assistance, but also private sector types of assistance, so financial instruments, concessional debt, guarantees, loans, etc., etc. And so you can see which funds can do those kinds of financing. Then there's the Africa Circular Economy Facility on the left-hand side of the slide. I won't go into that. The title is quite self-explanatory. It's looking at circular economy. And then finally, the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, which mostly intervenes on private sector type of projects. So here you have a list of other initiatives that we're involved in. Some of them are internal to the bank. Once again, others are external. The ones I would like to highlight are the Africa NDC Hub, so helping the countries with the NDCs, developing them. Second is the adaptation benefit mechanism, which is a quite novel mechanism that seeks to actually mobilize private sector financing strictly for adaptation. There are also new areas of work that the bank is looking at, but there's no time to go into that. So I'll just go to the next slide at this point and talk about some of the opportunities for collaboration. In a nutshell, this slide indicates that most of the opportunities revolve around recruitments for specific assignments. Those assignments, which are funded from the various funds I've talked about earlier, can go anywhere from 50K to 200, 300K, and even larger type of assignments. So usually these assignments lead to the development of project proposals, feasibility studies, additional resource mobilization, but also knowledge products that in the end might be published, as well as presented at various international events. Next slide, and I think it's my last slide, which shows the list of contacts within the department. So I won't go through them, you have them on the slide, and I'll just stop here so that there's enough time for interaction. There are also a couple of links at the bottom of the slide. So that's it. I'm happy to address any questions or comments for the audience, and yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, great. Christian Michel, or maybe Christian Michel, I don't know in which language. But please, Christian, can you unmute? Yeah, perfect. So we'll listen to your question, please.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I come from the Swiss Export Promotion Agency, and this question is for the Energy and Urban Infrastructure and Urban Development Department. So do you have any lists, let's say pre-selected lists of engineering companies or contractors that you usually work with in the projects that you presented? Thank you.
Okay, so maybe we can ask this question to both Nopenyo and Maimunatu. Nopenyo, were you able to hear if you have any list of pre-selected or like firms you're used to work with in engineering?
Thanks for the question. We don't currently kind of hold or maintain such a list. But yeah, that's the short answer. Yeah, I'm not sure how the colleagues from PICU feel about the question. Thank you.
Maimunatu, est-ce que vous de votre côté? Oui, je vous laisse répondre.
Non, en fait, on n'a pas une liste prédéfinie donc d'entreprises ou de bureaux avec qui nous travaillons. C'est des appels d'offres qu'on lance, donc conformément à nos procédures, ou bien parfois conformément aux procédures de certains pays. Et donc, c'est des questions d'éligibilité qui sont juste dans nos procédures et qui sont applicables. Donc, voilà.
Christian Michel, I hope we answered your question. So basically, you know, even though if there is maybe some firms we know and we've been working with, Then if there is a competition, we will always open it to all the firms. Now there are some we know, we might invite them to apply, but at the end of the day, all the firms will have to apply to the competitive process. Okay, so I think the first was Shereni, please.
Thank you. My name is Shereni from Zimbabwe. Can big companies also be part of this opportunities process? Or this is specifically for small and medium scale entities? I just wanted clarification. That's question number one. My question number two is, for individuals, is there a threshold that you say individuals cannot bid above a certain amount? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think maybe I'll take this one because I think our colleagues, this is more like related to procurement and sectors. So basically, when we launch a recruitment process, it will always say if it's for individual or if it's for firms. So the process, it's not the same. And as you start the recruitment process, you must indicate this is just for individual consultants or is this for firms like companies? But then everything is possible. If it's for consultant, like individual consultant, of course, only people can apply. And like was saying our colleagues, Wotor, we have a scale. So you will have to make a financial proposal that align with the scales of fees that are allowed for consultants. Then if the terms of reference say that it's a bid for companies, then any companies can apply. There is no size, but of course you'll always have the details in the terms of reference, right? I don't want to say like never or always. Normally it's open to any firms, but I'm sure there are like specific criteria. You can also, it will be detailed in the terms of reference. Yeah, so I hope this answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I think the next one was Paolo, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Paolo Destro Cappellano. I'm Italian. I work for WeBuild, which is the Italian main contractor, and I'm a director for a country in Lesotho. I've seen a plan for the last 10 years in terms of expenditure investment in various sectors. Is there any high profile look at the plan for the following years, 5 years, 10 years? I didn't appreciate that kind of information during the presentation. And could be possible to share the presentation at the end of this session, just that everybody's got the proper info to distribute within the companies and let the information flow.
Okay, so sure, Paolo. So we informed everyone, you'll receive a link with basically the website, a link to the website where all the presentation will be posted, but it might not be, right after the presentation. It might take a few days, but you'll get it next week, basically. You're asking if we have any investment plan for the coming years. So yeah, obviously, I don't think we would give you now the list, but that's something maybe that can be shared. I would like to have maybe any of my colleagues from the sectors. I don't know, Maimunata, Mark, or Ayanle, if you could take this question, is if for your department you have any kind of medium-term investment plan, please.
Oui, en fait, dans le département infrastructure et développement urbain, nous avons un tel plan, donc, mais c'est indicatif, donc c'est indicatif pour les 5 prochaines années. Donc, ça ne veut pas dire que ce qu'on a sur le plan, c'est nécessairement ce qui va se faire, parce qu'après, il y a plusieurs contraintes donc, qui vont nous permettre d'avoir notre programme de prêt chaque année. Mais en fait, cette liste existe. Donc, ce plan d'investissement, voilà. On l'appelle souvent le programme l'IOP, donc c'est vraiment indicatif.
Merci, Maimunatu. Ayanle, you also wanted to give an answer, please.
Yeah, no, just quickly, because of the nature of thank you, Henriette. the nature of the work that we do in the climate change department, we actually deal with all the sectors in the bank. Although we are not an operational department, we do mobilize co-financing for the bank that will benefit the various sector operations. And so usually what we do is we often, through our work, we are often exposed to the programmatic directions that arise from each of the sectors, basically. So there is a policy document that exists that lays out what's going to happen in the following years for each sector, usually. So it includes the CSPs. So in the CSP, the country strategy papers, usually there is a description of what's going to happen for the region or for the country. And then you have also the regional integration strategy papers that are also developed that lay out, the areas of investments. And like my previous colleague has indicated, so this is very indicative. So things might change down the line, as discussions progress. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ayanle. I think, yeah, that was very clear. So, yeah, I think we'll move to the next question then. Rose Pernet, je pense que vous êtes la prochaine.
Je travaille avec des jeunes en Côte d'Ivoire, plus de 100 jeunes, et les fonds mobilisés jusqu'à présent sont des fonds à titre personnel. Et ma question est de savoir si c'est possible d'octroyer des fonds à tous ces jeunes qui travaillent en coopérative dans le secteur de l'agriculture et de l'élevage. Merci.
D'accord. Merci, Rose. Donc là, vous parlez plutôt de bénéficiaires, en fait, avec lesquels vous travaillez et comment ils pourraient accéder à des financements. Donc ça, en général, c'est vraiment par rapport, donc c'est pas vraiment lié à la passation de marché, mais c'est lié au travail de chaque secteur de la banque. Quand ils font des projets avec les gouvernements ou avec les fonds fiduciaires, il y a des communications, des appels à projets pour pouvoir faire bénéficier les bénéficiaires. Donc il faudrait, bon là c'est en Côte d'Ivoire, il faut vous rapprocher. Bon, ça dépend s'il y a des projets en cours ou pas.
Il y a des projets en cours et puis moi, je suis en Suisse, au fait.
D'accord. Donc souvent, ce sont des projets souverains qui est mis en place avec le gouvernement. Donc en fait, la banque, elle donne les financements, mais après, c'est le gouvernement qui met en œuvre et c'est lui qui va s'occuper en fait de la sélection des bénéficiaires.
Non, au fait, ma question, c'est, par exemple, moi, c'est pas le gouvernement qui finance, c'est des fonds privés que j'ai pris pour financer et j'aimerais accroître ces fonds pour pouvoir permettre à plusieurs jeunes d'en profiter.
D'accord. Alors, comme c'est pas directement lié, peut-être Ayanle veut répondre. Sinon, ce que je propose, c'est qu'ensuite on puisse prendre la discussion en bilatéral après, parce que c'est pas forcément lié à la passation de marché. Mais je vais quand même donner l'opportunité à Ayanle de répondre, parce que je vois qu'il a levé sa main.
Oui, ok. Merci Henriette, je peux répondre en français. Donc en fait, dans ce cas de figure, on reçoit assez régulièrement ce genre de requêtes. Et généralement, ce que l'on fait, c'est que l'on transmet donc la requête vers nos collègues qui s'occupent donc des relations avec les associations de société civile au sein de la banque. Donc je ne peux pas en dire plus par rapport à un appui financier. Par contre, ce que je sais, c'est que en les mettant en relation avec cette équipe au sein de la banque, il y a certains, je dirais pas avantages, mais il y a des bénéfices à échanger avec l'équipe. Par exemple, je sais que donc lorsqu'une association de société civile ou un groupe, une ONG locale, voilà, est bien établi et a pu mettre en place des projets, micro-projets, etc. Il y a la possibilité d'être ajouté sur une liste voilà, au sein de la banque. Et donc, les associations listées sur cette liste sont ensuite invitées à parfois certains événements, à certaines opportunités et probablement des opportunités aussi de financement. Donc voilà, je voulais juste ajouter cela et qu'il y a moyen aussi de mettre ces associations en contact avec cette équipe au sein de la banque qui est dédiée à cela. Voilà. Merci.
Merci. Et puis, bon, s'il y a possibilité d'avoir le lien afin de pouvoir m'inscrire ou rentrer en contact avec cette partie ce serait bien pour moi. Merci.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Rose. Si on ne vous donne pas le lien dans le chat, n'hésitez pas à nous écrire sur le site internet et on vous donnera les contacts. Okay, so we are almost running out of time. So I will lead my colleague Mark to reply also because he raised his hand. Then we will take two last questions from Freddie and Kosilati. Then we will answer quickly what is in the chat because there are 2 or 3 questions in the chat, and then we will close the session. So please, Mark, if you wanted also to give some answers, please.
Yes, right. I want to respond partially to the youth, the support we give to the youth. Within the Agric, we have a program that we call Enable Youth. It's basically to support youth in agriculture. And with this, we partner with various government, and we also do competition to solicit for proposals from youth-led enterprises. So our colleague should watch out for some of the call for proposals for these youth-led enterprise. It's very competitive, and the winners are given some capital to expand the various enterprises that they are doing within agriculture. It can be production, it can be processing, it can be application of digital technology in agriculture.
Great, thank you, Mark. So Freddie, please, you're the next.
Oui, merci beaucoup pour les échanges de ce jour. C'est Freddy Padonou, je suis consultant dans le secteur de l'agriculture, je suis au Bénin. J'ai à plusieurs reprises essayé de postuler à des appels de consultation ou soit également à des postes au sein de la banque, que ce soit au siège ou soit également au Bénin, mais j'ai toujours remarqué que ça ne passe pas. Bon, des fois, j'ai des réponses, des fois, je n'ai pas du tout de réponse. Donc, je me dis certainement que c'est dans la manière dont je présente mon dossier en tant que consultant ou soit en tant que personne en tant que personnel qui fait le problème. Donc, je veux savoir si au niveau de la banque, il y a un format particulier pour présenter les CV, pour pouvoir avoir un profil gagnant, ou est-ce qu'il y a encore d'autres astuces qu'on pourrait développer pour quand même avoir un profil qui permet de gagner des postes ou soit des consultations au sein de la banque? Merci.
D'accord, merci pour votre question, Freddy, et pour votre intérêt pour travailler avec la banque. Donc, normalement, toutes les informations sont données dans les termes de référence et dans l'appel à l'expression d'intérêt. Donc, la première règle, vraiment, c'est de suivre toutes les instructions, parce que parfois, il y a des demandes spécifiques, et donc c'est important de donner toute l'information requise et de suivre les instructions. Maintenant, il n'y a pas de template spécifique pour le CV. Parfois, c'est indiqué, on vous demande de suivre un template. Si c'est le cas, il faut le suivre. Mais parfois, il n'y a pas de template. Si ce n'est pas précisé, ça veut dire qu'il n'y a pas de template et que vous pouvez utiliser le modèle que vous souhaitez. Maintenant, malheureusement, on reçoit tellement de candidatures, on ne peut pas faire de retour personnalisé. Donc, c'est difficile à dire. Personne ne peut dire pourquoi votre résumé n'a pas été sélectionné. Il faut quand même vous dire que c'est très compétitif quand on lance des appels à projets. Parfois, on reçoit 30, 40, 50, ça peut être 100 candidatures. Donc, parfois, c'est juste que c'est très compétitif. Maintenant, voilà, malheureusement, on ne peut pas faire de retour personnalisé dû au nombre de candidatures. Donc, voilà, bonne chance, bon courage et continuez à postuler en espérant qu'une fois, ça puisse marcher. Mais le plus important, c'est de suivre vraiment les instructions qui sont données et de bien s'assurer que vos compétences alignent avec toutes les caractéristiques requises pour postuler, en fait. Souvent, on dit bien quelles sont les compétences requises et voilà, il faut bien correspondre à tous ces critères pour pouvoir postuler.
Merci, Madame Henriette.
Je vous en prie. Okay, we will take the last live question because we are already 5 minutes over time, and then we'll take a few questions in the chat. Kosilati, please.
Yes, good afternoon. I represent an asset manager, and I wanted to ask if the bank ever does cooperation with asset managers, because at times we have situations where we want to put funds to use for reasons such as corporate social responsibility. And from what I've seen before, you guys could help us with issues like KYC and integrity. So is it a position where you might be able to help us identify projects, especially in the scope of human capital, infrastructure, and energy, where ourselves as asset managers would be able to put funds to use, sometimes with the objectives of return, but sometimes also in terms of grants and such situations? Is that something that we could work with the development bank to put some of our funds to use as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we're always happy to receive funds to invest, and we do a lot of co-financing with investment funds. I don't know if any of my colleagues from the sectors maybe would like to give a bit more information or examples of such co-financing with like impact funds or investment funds. I don't know if anyone would have an experience to share about this. Okay, Ayanle, please.
Yes, this is a question for the
Private sector.
representative from private sector. Would you be interested in the adaptation to climate change sector, for example? I mean, it's kind of just a quick question, just to see, because if there is interest there, then perhaps there is a mechanism that we have internally at the bank that would be of interest. So first off, I just wanted to return with respond with a question. Thanks.
Kosilati, do you want to reply to Ayanle?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, it's something I think would definitely fit our guidelines and frameworks. It would fall under CSR. So my question would be, is there someone I could get in touch with, or an email account that I could have further discussions with to see where cooperations could happen in future? But yes, certainly climate change is something that would definitely be on the table.
Okay, that's great. So I think Henriette, so the key contact in my presentation is Gareth Phillips, who is the manager of the Environment and Climate Finance Division. That's where the ABM is piloted from, and it's on my list of contacts on the last slide, BCG1. Yeah, so that would be the contact person for that. So I'm sure Gareth would be very happy to receive such an email and see the possibility of exchanging further on that. The ABM is actually geared towards that. The idea is to get the private sector to invest more into that space. So yeah, there are some connections with Paris Alignment. And there's COP also happening as we speak. So there's a lot going on in that space as well. So I'm sure Gareth will be happy to take this forward. Yeah, thank you.
Great. So please, Kosilati, I just put the slide again. You can check the contact of Gareth Phillips, and feel free to write to him. And he will take it from there. Thank you. So now I will take two questions from the chat, and then we will close the session. One from Ak is saying, for all the from Pazorora, for all sectors. So basically, is the bank also open to receiving unsolicited project proposal from consultant, or is it always competitive projects? So definitely, it's always competitive. So even though you would apply in an unsolicited way, we might tell you that, oh, you have a good profile, please apply to this specific call for proposal. Now our colleague Wotor explained as well that sometimes for specific reasons that must be justified, we can also do direct procurement, but you have rules for that. In any case, what I would say is you can register to DECON. DECON is a system, and I think the link was shared in the chat, where all the consultants can put their profile. And so sometimes if we want to recruit a consultant, we can go through this list and pick several consultants to constitute a short list. So that would be the best way to do like to put your resume available to the people at the bank who are recruiting consultants. But the best way, I think, it's still to check online, like what are the opportunities and apply specifically to those opportunities. It's what will work best. And maybe the last question we'll take. Okay, my name is Afiza from Ghana. How do new companies register as consultant and for procurement? Is there a consideration given to young entrepreneurs to participate? I'm asking because agencies will usually want companies with long-standing profiles. So this is true. Most of the time when the bank recruits a firm or company, one of the criteria is to have at least 3 years of existence and some portfolio of projects that were already achieved so that they can demonstrate of their experience. But again, there is no rule. So, I mean, no general rule. So the best is to always look at the terms of reference. Each of them, for each specific project, will explain what are the rules to be able to apply. But it's true that in general, we are asking for a few years of experience before you are eligible to apply. So with this, I think we'll stop the session, even though I'm sure we could still keep it open. There is a lot of interest, and thank you for that. But what I will recommend, if we were not able to respond to your question, just contact us through the BOSS website. So maybe we'll then move to the last point, which is to take a poll. So basically, anyone who has participated, we would really appreciate if you would take a few minutes to take an online survey. And with that, we will close the session. So you can stay online, respond to the survey. It will appear on the screen, and you can respond to it on the screen. And then we will close the session. We're happy to see everyone in the audience. So please, for the one online, try to take the poll. So it's not for the one who presented, it's only for the one who attended. You just have a few questions, and it allows us to get some feedback to be able to improve for next time. I will thank everyone for participating. It's always great for us to be able to interact with companies, firms, consultants who would like to work with the bank. We also learn a lot from your questions. Thank you to all the speakers, to my colleagues as well, who've been presenting, and we could not do it without their contribution. So thank you, colleagues. And wishing a good end of day to everyone. And we will be back next year with the next BOSS. As soon as we have the date, it will be communicated on our website.